We are starting now on Daf Beis, Amud Beis in Brachos, Daf 2b in Brachos. The Gemara before at the bottom of Daf Beis Amud Aleph just finished saying that when the pasuk says Uva Hashemesh v'taher, it's referring to the fact that the Kohanim eat truma when the sun sets, and v'taher refers to the fact that the day becomes pure, the day is finished. Now the Gemara is in the middle of a question. The Gemara at the top of Daf Beis Amud Beis asks as follows: Dilma bias orohu. Maybe when it says uva hashemesh, it actually means bias oro, which would refer to the sun rising in the morning on the 8th day of the Kohen's purification, and maybe only on the 8th day, not at the evening before. Only on the 8th day would the Kohen be allowed to eat truma. Umay v'tar tar gavra, and it's referring to the purification of the person when he brings his carbon. When the Kohen brings his carbon, how do you know that the Kohen can eat the night before? Amar Rabba bar Rav Shila. Rabba bar Rav Shila says, Im kain, if so, leima krav yitoher. It should say that he becomes pure. My v'taher, taher yoma. The word v'tar refers to the day finishing, the day becoming, so to speak, purified when the sun sets, when the tzeis hakochavim, when nightfall sets in. Kida amri inchi, as people say, arev shimsha v'yidcha yuma. When the sun sets, when the evening sets in, the day is purified. B'ma'arava, in the west, had Rabba bar Rav Shila lo shmilahu. They didn't hear this statement of Rabba bar Rav Shila. Uvo lami boy, and they asked it as a question. Hi uvo hashemesh bias shimshohu umay v'toyer tar yoma. Odilma bias orohu umay v'toyer tar gavra. This pasuk, when it says uvo hashemesh, is it referring to the morning, and is it referring to the purification of the purification of the person, or is it referring to the evening beforehand, and it's referring to, so to speak, the purification of the day? V'hadar pashtu lami brisa. And then in the West, when they had this question, they answered it from a brisa, midiktani bebrisa simin ladover tzeis hakochavim. It says in the brisa that a way to know what time it is tzeis hakochavim, is nightfall. Shma mina bias shimshahu umay v'toyer tar yomi. You see that it's not bias oro, but it's bias shimshahu. It refers to the sun going down, and it refers to the day being purified, and it is the evening before that the Kohanim actually eat their truma. Amar Mar, going back on what we said before, the master said, Misha Kohanim nichnasin lechol b'trumason. It says that the time for saying Kriya Shema, the time for reciting the evening Shema, is when the Kohanim eat their truma. Uraminhu, we have a contradiction from another brisa. Me'emasai korin as Shema ba'arvin. When do we recite Shema in the evening? Misha ani nichnas lechol pito b'melach. From the time that the ani is beginning to eat his bread and salt. Ad shah she'omed lipater mitoch sudaso, and he only has a short amount of time to say Shema. You only have until the ani is ready to end his meal. So it seemingly gives different times for the recitation of the evening Shema. The Gemara says, Seif avadai pliga masnisin. The end of this brisa, which says it's the time that the meal ends, certainly argues on our Mishnah no one had an end time like that. Reisha milema pligia masnisin. What about the Reisha? What about when does an ani begin to eat his meal? And the Gemara suggests, Lo ani v'kohen chad sheyurahu. No, you could answer that an ani and a kohen, both of them eat at the beginning of nightfall, and it's actually the same time. Uraminhu, we have another contradiction. When does a person begin to recite Kriyas Shema in the evening? From the time that the people begin to eat their bread on Erev Shabbos, according to Rabbi Meir. And the Chachamim say, from the time that the Kohanim merit to eat their truma, similar davar tzeis hakochavim. And the way to know when this time is again, nightfall tzeis hakochavim. And even though there's no proof to this, there is a hint to this. Shenamar, like it says, V'anachnu osim b'malacha, we were doing work, v'chitzim machzikim b'ramachim me'alos hashachar ad tzeis hakochavim. We were doing this from alos hashachar, from dawn until night, until tzeis hakochavim. So what the pasuk is saying is that the daytime is apparently from alos hashachar till tzeis hakochavim, and it is a remez, it is a hint to the fact that tzeis hakochavim is the time that the day ends, and therefore the evening shema should begin. V'yomer, and it says, V'hayu lanu halayla mishmar v'hayom malacha. The night will be for us a watch, and during the day we will do work. Again, another indication that it was the daytime that they're doing the work, and the nighttime therefore begins at tzeis hakochavim. My v'omer, why do we need the second pasuk? Isn't the first pasuk good enough? Maybe you're going to say that when the sun goes down, it is really when the sun sets before before the stars come out, it's really night. Maybe they worked late, and maybe they even got up early. Maybe when the sun rose, it was really daytime, and they started it all the way at dawn. That's why the pasuk is brought as a second piece of evidence that the night was mishmar and the day was the time they were doing malacha, they were doing work, and therefore again you see that the day ends with Tzeis HaKochavim, with the coming out of the stars. So now the Gemara says, right now we believe that an ani, a poor person, and bnei adam, people, the people mentioned by Rabbi Meir who eat on Erev Shabbos, we think that's all the same time. Now, if you're also going to say that an ani and a kohen, when the kohen eats, is also the same time, meaning it's all Tzeis HaKochavim, Chachamim hainu Rabbi Meir, it would come out that Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim are all, everyone is saying Tzeis HaKochavim, because the Chachamim also said Tzeis HaKochavim as they brought their evidence from the Psukim as well. So Elo Shma Mina. So it says. So the Gemara says it must be. Do we see from here Ani Shiura Lachud v'Kohen Shiura Lachud? Do we see that an Ani and a Kohen are actually separate time periods, and therefore Rabbi Meir, when Rabbi Meir says Bnei Adam, is not saying the same thing as the Chachamim? The Gemara says Lo, no, Ani v'Kohen Chad Shiurahu. Really, an Ani and a Kohen is one time period. V'ani uvnei Adam lav chad shiuruhu. But Rabbi Meir is unique because Rabbi Meir says Bnei Adam. That is not the same as Ani and Kohen. Ani and Kohen would both be at Tzeis HaKochavim. Rabbi Meir is talking about a different time period of when people eat on Erev Shabbos. It's a different time. And then the Chachavim say the Tzeis HaKochavim as the other opinions that we saw. Gemara continues. The ani v'chohen chad shiurahu. Is an ani and a kohen really one time period? It's all going to be Tzeis HaKochavim. We're going to ask another contradiction on this. Uraminu, we have a contradiction. Me'ei masai maschilin likros shma be'arvin. What time do we recite the evening shma? Same question as we've had all along. First opinion, Misha shekidesh hayom ba'arvei Shabbosos, from the time that basically Shabbos starts. Misha shekidesh hayom ba'arvei Shabbosos, Rashi says, means that's bein hashmoshos, the time in between sunset and nightfall. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, that's what Rabbi Eliezer says. Rabbi Yoshua says, Misha shakohanim mitoharim lechol b'trumasan, from the time the Kohanim begin to eat Truma, the same time we gave before, when they're purified, Tzeis HaKochavim, when they can eat Truma. Rabbi Meir Omer, Rabbi Meir says, Misha shakohanim tovlin lechol b'trumasan, from the time that the Kohanim immerse themselves in order to become pure, to eat Truma, which would be an earlier time period. Amar lo Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said to Rabbi Meir, "V'halo kohanim ba'od yomim tovlim." How could you say such a thing? That's already while it's still daytime. The whole point is that they immerse themselves before nightfall. So why would you recite the evening Shema when it's still day? Rabbi Chanina Omer. Rabbi Chanina says, "Misha she'ani nichnas lechol pito b'melach." From the time that the poor person goes and eats his bread and salt. Rabbi Achoy v'amri lo Rabbi Acha Omer. Rabbi Acha, some people say Rabbi Achoy, says as follows: Misha sherov b'nei Adam nichnasen lahasev. At the time the most people go to lean to eat their meal. So the Gemara now says, V'i amrit ani v'kohen chad shiurahu. If you're going to say, as we've been saying, that an ani and a kohen essentially eat at the same time, and it's all at Tzeis HaKochavim, Rabbi Chanina, hainu Rabbi Yoshua. Then it turns out that Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Yoshua are saying the same thing. Rabbi Yoshua again was the one who said Kohanim eating Truma, as we've been saying all along. That's the main shear of the Mishnah. Rabbi Chanina said from the time that the ani eats the bread with salt. They're all in the same brisa, yet they're apparently saying the same thing. Elolav shmamina. Rather, do you not see from here shiura de ani lechud, v'shiura de kohen lechud shmamina? You see that a kohen and an ani are two separate time periods, and they are not identical. The Gemara now asks, "Hai minayu mu'achar." If they are separate time periods, which one is later? Gemara says, "Mistaber de ani mu'achar." It would be apparently true that the time period of ani, which is the one that Rabbi Chanina said, is actually the later time period. Di'i amrit de ani muktam. If you're going to contend that ani is an earlier time, Rabbi Chanina hainu Rabbi Eliezer. Eliezer. It would emerge Rabbi Eliezer already gave the earlier time. That was the opinion that said Misha Shakidesh Hayom Ba'arbe Shavasos. That was over here, Shakidesh Hayom Ba'arbe Shavasos. Now that opinion we said was Bein Hashmashos a little bit before nightfall, so it would come out at the same time. If Ani was a little bit before, it would be identical. Alav Shma Mina, the Ani Mu'ucher Shma Mina. You see from this, Ani is the later time period, and he is pushing the time for saying Kriya Shema of the evening a little bit after Tzeis HaKochavim. Gemara now turns to this brisa that we just discussed and analyzes it a little further. Amar Mar, the master said, Amar le Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said to Rabbi Meir, V'halo kohanim v'od yomim tovlam. Don't the kohanim do tefillah? Don't they immerse themselves while it's still day? Why would you say the evening shema while it's still day? Shapir Amar le Rabbi Yehuda le Rabbi Meir. Isn't Rabbi Yehuda correct in his argument against Rabbi Meir? Rabbi Meir will respond, Hachi ka'amar le. This is what he's saying. Mi savrit. This is what Rabbi Meir is saying to the other opinions. Mi savrit da'anoa bein hashmoshos didoch kamina. You think that I'm going on your bein hashmoshos, that when I say the time period of the Kohanim immersing themselves, that I hold of your bein hashmoshos. Now, Rabbi Yehuda's bein hashmashos was more typical of what we think of as bein hashmashos, which is a bit before Tzeis HaKochavim, kind of between sunset and when the stars come out. But he says, Ano bein hashmashos Rabbi Yossi koamina. I hold of the bein hashmashos of Rabbi Yossi. D'amar Rabbi Yossi bein hashmashos kerevayin. Rabbi Yossi says that bein hashmashos is like the blink of an eye. It's just one moment before nightfall. Zeh nichnas v'zeh yotzei. This one enters and this one goes out, meaning the day passes and the night starts immediately. V'i evshar lamod olav, and it's impossible to figure out exactly when this moment is. And therefore, if you're going to immerse yourselves a little bit before Tzeis, it's really already going to, because bein hashmashos is only a moment, it is really going to be an immersion that is at night, and it's not a problem that you're reciting the evening Shema during the day. That is the end of Daf Beis Amud Beis. That is the second half of Daf Beis. And we'll continue with Daf Gimel Amud Aleph, Daf 3a in the next video.